there was a conference in Germany, Munich, at the Inner Solar, and everybody was just asking for incentives. Give me incentives, give me. And I'm like, guys, you should stop talking about incentives. How about the idea that if you do not do agrivoltaics, you will not have the yield of your biomass in the future, period, because climate is changing. And if you still want to have the same yield, then you have to do something about it.
Are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our host Tim Montague bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility, solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together we can speed the energy transition.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Today on the Clean Power Hour, vertical solar and agrivoltaics, two of my favorite topics. My guests today are twofold: Helge Biernath, CEO of Sunzaun, the vertical racking company, and Ian Skor, the CEO of Sandbox Solar, an EPC in northern Colorado. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, same here.
I did a series on agrivoltaics last year, and it was very popular, so I'm excited to do more this year. We're also hosting a panel discussion with the two of you and a couple of other guests on July the 15th. So check that out at cleanpowerhour.com. Go to the events tab, and you'll see it there right front and center. Powering Agriculture's Future: Agrivoltaic Solutions for a Sustainable Tomorrow, featuring Helga, Professor Majdi, Ian, and John Langdon, who's a farmer in Oregon. But why don't we set the table a little bit? How do the two of you come to be bedfellows?
Ian, you want to start, or?
Absolutely. I mean, our full history. So I started Sandbox Solar 10 years ago, EPC in northern Colorado, covering all the way from residential, commercial, even diving into a little bit of community solar installations. Passion for innovation, and saw early back in 2018 that our panels were creating a unique microclimate that could be beneficial for plant growth. And in northern Colorado, we have Colorado State University with a lot of innovation labs, and we're very closely tied with them in many ways, and was able to connect with a horticulture professor there, Dr. Mark Uchansky. Brought a bifacial solar panel, which was newly commercialized to the market at the time, and said, hey, can we install agrivoltaics? And so we did that and kicked off our agrivoltaic research and development. And
what year was that you started in agrivoltaics?
That was 2018. We started our first trials.
Cool.
We brought that to the field, tested some semi-transparent panels, and noticed that plants are actually growing better underneath semi-transparent panels than in the open field environment, CSU's agricultural research facility.
All right. And you, Helga?
But yeah, you asked how did we get together. So Ian also started a software product, which we found interesting to better describe or predict, what is going to happen with the biomass next and below an agrivoltaic system. And so we were reaching out to them, to Sandbox, and then we had the pleasure, I think 2.5 years ago at the first Solar Farm Summit, to come together to get to know each other personally. And that basically, started the collaboration in agrivoltaics and vertical. So coming back to my background, we are a 15-year-old installation company, ground mount installation, the type of solar you have in your background, Tim. And we started out of California and did projects, probably 1,500 by now, across the United States, from Hawaii to Massachusetts. With my European heritage, I obviously always follow what's going on in other parts of the world, especially Europe. And I was seeing that a lot of dual use scenarios are popping up from Italy, France, Germany, Sweden, everywhere. And so I thought that might be something for us also to add a product to our service offering. And so vertical was not really infringing on anybody's business model already, like all the racking and tracker companies we're working with. And so we thought, hey, there is a little niche for us. And so we got into that niche with a vertical. And as I said, connected with Ian and Sandbox. And I think we're now kind of the leaders a little bit in that market in the United States, and we're just focusing on the market here, even though we are getting a lot of requests from across the world. And I mean it, from Africa to Asia. I think we're talking to a gentleman in Taiwan right now, and they're very, very interested to do vertical, because some islands, they have not enough space, right? So they're constrained, and they just that makes sense to them.
And most recently, Helge and I worked together to deploy a Sunzaun product at the CSU Agrivoltaic testing grounds that Sandbox Solar hosts. And
what is CUCU?
CSU, Colorado State University.
Okay, CSU. Got it.
Well, we're at words here, Sunzaun. So just to clarify that we're not a Chinese company, right? We're an American company. And Zaun is the German word for fence. So with my German heritage, I thought, hey, let's combine things, make it a little bit more sexy, maybe. Look at Elon, what he did with his models. And that's why. So it has nothing to do with
except Elon called his product Solar Roof. Yeah. You should have called it Sun Fence or something like that, because people don't understand Zaun. Anyway,
that's exactly perfect, because nobody understood Google either.
It's all good.
Now we have Sunzaun in a commercial agricultural setting, which is amazing. CSU has been running tractors in between the vertical solar rows and has been able to do a full seeding to harvesting season last year, and beginning to seed again between these vertical rows. And so we're getting amazing data on the interoperability of these vertical solar in an agricultural setting now.
Cool. Yeah, I love it. You can see in both your backgrounds, vertical solar. So literally, we're talking about upright solar panels, rows of solar panels running north-south, so they're getting east-west radiation. And then just a quick aside about agrivoltaic and Ian's comment about the plants were growing better under the array. Well, yes, it is stressful for some crops to get too much sunlight. And it's a conflict for plants. They want to capture photons, but when they capture photons, they have to give off moisture, and there are always trade-offs that plants have to make. And they do get sunburned just like we do as well. So sun can be stressful. So we're learning a lot, and there's a lot yet to be learned. I do also resonate with what Helga said, keeping in touch with what's going on in Europe. I like to say we have a time machine in the solar industry. It's called Northern Europe and Asia. They're 10 years ahead of what we're doing in the United States, generally speaking. The thing about Europe is land is super premium, relatively speaking. Here in the U.S., we are swimming in real estate, and that is just not the case. And so they've had to dial in systems for a more constrained environment.
Yeah, but I would stop you there, Tim. I live in California, right? And you've seen the numbers that we're curtailing more and more energy because we have this nice real estate in the desert, but we can't get those electrons to the load centers, because we have the issue of transmission. Okay, that aside, if we could locate the electron production closer to the load centers, let's take the Bay Area, let's take LA, right? And would share that with agriculture and would support the farmers, I think we would be better off and we wouldn't have to curtail so much.
Yeah, for sure. We need to be more innovative about integrating solar into the built environment. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, where are the applications as you guys see it for vertical solar, and why don't we see more of it yet?
Yeah, we're really exploring, of course, the agriculture side heavily. We're trying to see it in more like commercialized community solar scale type of operations to allow for more commodity crops. I think that's a big key land opportunity because there's so many commodity crops that are near the ideal locations where solar needs to be installed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I'd say our main Sandbox Solar's main focus on discovering vertical bifacial. But I think the amazing opportunity is there's so many different applications for it. I'll let Helge expand on that.
When you say commodity crops, what are you referring to? I'm just curious because that's different by geography.
Yeah, generally that means alfalfa, corn, a lot of your grains, those types of crops that are fielded and harvested over many acres.
And if you were to take a traditional grain field, okay, let's say alfalfa, and integrate vertical solar into that, what percent of the land gets converted to vertical solar? Do you have a sense?
It's a great question. We haven't fully estimated that, but it's
Is it 10%?
yeah, I mean, it's very minimal, 10, 20%, more so just for the fences. And you can harvest basically up until 3 feet within that solar array just fine.
Right. Okay. And Helga, what are the applications? What I guess we should maybe also take a slight step back in, like, why do you think the United States is ready for a vertical solar solution?
I mean, coming back to your initial question, right? Why don't we see more of it yet? I think because people are not aware that such a solution exists, number one. That's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
That's why we started an Agrivoltaics conference at UC Davis, just so that together with academia, and Ian did the same in Colorado, we get the data, so to give it to the farmers, right, to understand what they can do with it. And it starts, I mean, with all the different, I mean, we have 600 different crops here in California, so it's kind of hard to predict, where
Only
does it
600?
make sense?
Come on.
Only 600, Where is the biggest impact? Is it strawberries because they're getting burned, and we can reduce also evaporation? Yes, it's not like a completely shaded system from the top, but it can also provide you shade, let's say in the afternoon, right? So I think we still need to establish more models, which the software colleagues like Ian's company and some others are working on to give you the kind of the first idea. What does it also mean for water? How much water can we save? Because everybody is just looking at the electrons today. I mean, that's also one of the challenges. If you take the vertical product and you argue with an EPC who is doing, fixed tilt and tracker all day long, they will look at the production and the efficiency and say, yeah, that's not the same, and you're trying to compare apples to pears, not going to work. So you need to have a fresh mindset and forget about that and look at, your constraints and what you can do with it. I'm always talking about, let's think about the electrons I need on site for the farmers for electrification. For automation, we're going to see more robots out there. You see it in Europe, you see it here. I mean, from the Monarch tractors to other things. You can enable the farmers now with new things, right? I mean, cold storage or other pumping, if that's helpful. So I think we need to look at the different applications in a new era of farming as well. Because, I mean, they can't bring those robots back all the way 5 miles to the barn to now charge it up. No, it has to be out there. It has to be out there, and we need the electrons there. So that, I think, together with supporting the biomass, and not only, there was a conference in Germany, Munich, at the Inner Solar, and everybody was just asking for incentives. Give me incentives, and I'm like, guys, you should stop talking about incentives. How about the idea that if you do not do agrivoltaics, you will not have the yield of your biomass in the future, period, because climate is changing. And if you still want to have the same yield, then you have to do something about it. I was just reading again that the Europeans, sometimes they use it as a hail protection for orchards, apples, pears, Now you think hail, we got these trackers and they're all getting damaged by hail. Yeah, but I mean, you can use different glass for that, right? And then it can be a protection of your orchard. So think outside the box. Think about also a secondary or tertiary use. Think about, you could add easily here a shading system. You could easily add an irrigation system. So Ian and I were still open to, hey, what is your challenge and how can we innovate, engineer, and make it a fit, for your specific situation, your crop, your region, your project.
No, I'll add to that too. Helge hit on a very important point, and a question I think gets asked often of vertical solar specifically is how much does it produce? And I think we all know it kind of makes the double peak curve now, but we want to know what was that specific yield? And so we've started to uncover that a little bit. We have some production from our 2 vertical sites, and we modeled the forecasted energy to the real time yield. And we can model these projects within about a 5% error. So we found a way to model the production of these within 5% error using SAM modeling. So
tell us about the specific yield relative to fixed tilt or tracker.
Yeah, right now we've found about a 20% decrease in yield from a single axis tracker. And I think it's like 10% from a fixed system, fixed south facing. And with partners in Europe and China that are also doing vertical solar, there's apparently ways to increase that yield to where it's comparable to the tracker. So we're starting to uncover those methods to get that yield
that
to
20
be
that 20%, is that for rows going north-south or east-west?
Vertical rows going north-south with the panels facing east-west.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Helga?
Yeah, 2 things. Latitude makes a difference, right? If I have snow, I don't have snow loads here. I have clean panels all day long, which is a problem in California and desert states. And don't forget, I mean, I get the solar power in the winter, and then we have also a different curve because of the nice albedo of the snow. So I think that's one of the ideas Ian is going after. So I think, and if we have saturated markets, as we know, we're getting more money for the electrons in the afternoon, right? We just talked about curtailing things. So I think we need to consider that as well for the vertical solar and for the economics on it.
Okay, and then we do have markets like New Jersey that require you to do agrivoltaics if you want to do greenfield solar now, right, for small utility or utility. Now, New Jersey is pretty unique because it is so small, and it is an agricultural state. I just think that vertical solar is a fantastic solution for that. Are you guys doing any projects in states that are requiring agrivoltaics?
Currently, Sandbox Solar is developing and constructing various types of agrivoltaic solutions, specifically in Colorado in this moment. However, Spade does do consulting. So we have helped a lot of developers out and other EPCs across the country to figure out how to deploy agrivoltaics within their state. So we have worked on some projects outside of state.
Yeah, and we have talked about Spade on the show, but you should probably give us a refresher. What is Spade?
Yeah, so Spade boiled down to models any kind of PV solution in anywhere, in any climate, anywhere in the world. And we can model the irradiance underneath the solar panels and on the solar panels, of course. And we can model the energy production. We can see what the potential yield is of crops or forage underneath the panels. And we're working to advance that solution to really understand the full microclimate that occurs underneath the panels. So we can use that solution to design optimal designs for agrivoltaics anywhere in the world.
Yeah, very cool.
Coming back to New Jersey, so we have supplied our system for the Rutgers installation, and so one of the ideas behind that is obviously to train the new agricultural engineers and scientists, to understand, okay, look, this is how it works. You can choose from trackers to fixed tilt to vertical, see what fits the best for your operation. And no, we have not seen yet anything, but to me, no surprise, because it has to, it has to start working, and then projects need to be identified and then planned, and then we're getting to the point. So we're a little bit, you said it, behind in adapting, but I think we're going to be fast. As soon as we fully understand what it is with Ian's, Spade and other tools, and then we're going to hit it. Because if those big boys farmers, especially, when they understand, what the benefits are for them, the Driscolls of the world, and then they're going to deploy.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. Yeah, I mean, it's so early days, and we have lots of runway. And we need more good information. I'm super grateful for Spade. I use Helioscope and now Celestica as a design platform. And I'm curious, Ian, how do traditional tools that we use in C&I solar and community solar hold up in terms of modeling something like vertical solar? Do they even cut the mustard at all?
I can respond to that quickly, Ian, because I just heard some data from yesterday. And we're going to talk, by the way, at the Solar Farm Summit about that topic, Ian, me, and some other folks.
Okay.
But if you compare it, and we have an installation in the Central Valley, the systems cannot give you 90 degrees, and they have still issues with the bifaciality.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing basically, I think, 8 to 10% better production than design.
With Spade.
None of those other tools can model vertical solar production.
Okay.
However, we've been able to uncover a process that we believe we can integrate with Spade to obtain a production accuracy of 5% for vertical solar. So we're working on that now.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the value propositions that I love about agrivoltaics, for example, when you think about vegetation management and grazing, in large swaths now of the Midwest and the Southwest and the Northeast, running sheep on solar farms has become economical because mowing is expensive. It's also polluting technology, and so we welcome integration of grazing sheep onto solar farms. And this is a win-win, right? It's a win for the grazers. They need forage, and the solar farm asset owners want to reduce their O&M costs. And then it's also good for farm communities because they don't want to see farmland being used for non-farmland uses. And so if you can integrate ag and solar farming, that's just good for everyone. So maybe you guys can talk a little bit about that. That really is the future, right? Of integration of clean energy and agriculture.
Absolutely. Yeah, finding that symbiosis is key. I mean, that's the essence of agrivoltaics, is the food, energy, water nexus, and it just makes so much sense to integrate it all. And there's going to be a net benefit to doing it.
Because money talks, right? Like, it has to be economical for farmers to grab onto it. That's why they grow corn and beans here in the Midwest, because there are significant subsidies for them to do so. We're not eating most of those corn and beans. A lot of it's going to biofuels, unfortunately, which is grossly inefficient by a factor of 10 compared to farming photons directly. But what were you going to say, Helga?
Yeah, but we still need to keep in mind that conditions are changing. Yeah, and take Fresno. They had last year all of a sudden 100 days above 100 degrees.
Wow.
So that's kind of, the Central Valley, and they're producing a lot, right, of different crops. So I think we just need to also give the farmers tools, to not surviving, but yes, they have to survive with their product, right? And with the yields. Because I mean, yes, you can argue it's all about it has to be penciling in 2-3 years. But if you don't have a crop anymore in 2-3 years, you're going to be done anyways, right? So you need to change something. And we had at the last Agrivoltaics conference at UC Davis, we were talking about shades as a value proposition you can sell. Well, how crazy is that, right? But I mean, it's about the workers, right? Because who's picking, or in the future, maybe robots, if that's possible, but also about the produce. So I think we also need to look at from that perspective. And then if you have a steady income from the electrons, either self-consumption, which is obviously always better, or that you have your battery bank and your winery, and finally you don't have to worry about, the grid being gone, right? And you have your produce there, and it's also the cold storage is not working anymore because you don't have a generator or you don't have a battery bank. I think, if you talk to some of the wineries here, they're like, I think, we want to be just our microgrid, because we've seen it too many times, that the grid goes down, forced by fires, for example, or by, hey, we're just shutting it off the grid. I don't know if you guys see that in the Midwest, but if we're in California, we know about that. We have it. If you're sitting here for 3 days without a power, it's a problem for your produce.
I didn't quite understand the question, though. If we have that problem being grid outages?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and the need for microgrids and for the farmers also to be independent, in that regards, besides the self-consumption.
Yeah, it's not a huge problem. It's not as big a problem here as it is in Texas, for example, but it is a problem. And yeah, the future is community scale microgrids. I'm a huge fan of the Clean Coalition and Craig Lewis's work there.
Was Michigan not the state I heard, last week who had the most outages? Was it not Michigan?
Could be. Could be. There's like a sea in the Midwest that is rife with outages. I'm in the middle of that, we don't have a lot of outages here in Illinois, but Michigan is in an area that does have more outages for sure.
Just my point is we can support the farmers with that, right? To have their own power combined with their product.
Absolutely. Well, what else? Should we talk a little bit about the event on July 15th? What we're going to do with that?
Sure. I mean, the beauty is we have John Langdon, who is promoting solar and farming. I mean, his slogan is "Solar saves farms," which is cool. And he's going to talk about what that means to the farmers. How can they adapt? How can they incorporate that? And then we have Professor Majdi from UC Davis, who with us started that conference at UC Davis about agrivoltaics 2.5 years ago. And he's also going to have a little test yard with trackers and fixed tilt and vertical, which is about to be built to test different crops, under different conditions. So I think we have a little bit of different perspectives. Obviously, this is not the whole country. As we know, we got Arizona and we got, New Jersey and we got Minnesota and we got Ian, so I think everybody has to find their solution for their climate and their projects. And we're going to talk about it.
It's a little overwhelming, to be honest. Like, there are so many applications. I'm just looking at the description on our panel discussion, right? And you've got windbreaks for crops, reducing water evaporation, generating clean energy for electrification of the operation. Obviously, it's already somewhat electrified. It's going to get even more electrified as we move to electric tractors that need the ability to charge remotely. So many applications. And I'm curious, though, when you guys think about this landscape of agrivoltaics, what is the relative role you think that vertical solar is going to play in that bigger landscape?
I think vertical solar is just it's one of the more flexible and I think ultimately applicable opportunities just because it does save on land space. It
Mm-hmm.
can be placed in a lot of configurations. A lot of operations can be interoperable with the vertical solar. There's just so many opportunities specifically with vertical solar that I think it allows it to make to be nimble in a lot of different scenarios and maximize various climate opportunities. I mean, like Helga said, if you're in the north and get a lot of snow, you don't get a lot of snow soiling. So there's heavy opportunities to leverage vertical solar there. But also with commodity crops, if you're able to truly interoperate without too much maintenance in between vertical rows of solar, that makes it a lot more scalable. So those are two small examples where it can be really nimble and applicable to many different climates and opportunities that make it exciting.
Yeah, when you think about the vast amount of acreage, something like 40% of our real estate is used for creating food for livestock, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge amount of our land mass goes to creating food for livestock. If we integrated vertical solar into just 10% of that land, that's probably all the power we need, right? That's entirely a green grid. And obviously it's going to be a combination of rooftop, ground mount, photovoltaics, etc. This is just one more tool in our box, and it's an important tool. And I guess I'm still curious about the economics. Can either of you speak to that? Like if I'm a solar developer doing 5 to 10 megawatt projects using trackers or fixed tilt solutions, and I'm really keen to get on this agrivoltaics bandwagon, what are the incentives for me to go, you know what, we're going to start doing vertical solar in some of these projects?
Yeah, I think one is what we're trying to tackle is what's the production, what's the predicted bankable modeling. I think that's the first key step into having comfortability and knowing that it's going to work in certain environments. And so we're starting to uncover that with only a 5% error. So like I said, we're seeing 20% reduction yield based off of single axis trackers, but we have some theories on using more higher bifaciality panels to be deployed in
Well, and
certain
your crop yield is
environments.
higher, right? So you're not losing as much of the crop as you would, and that's the thing, is the solar developer somehow incentivized to benefit from that agricultural use? I mean, I get it on the vegetation control and grazing, but when it comes to cash cropping or commodity cropping, it's even earlier days. But clearly, there is an opportunity there where you're still producing a good, healthy crop, and then
Yep.
augmenting the income from the land with electricity to consume.
And here comes our new hypothesis, our new experiences as we've developed community solar projects. It's a pretty timely and cost-intensive aspect to deal with the erosion or stormwater control of the water that the HJ requires. However, with the vertical solar, we're hypothesizing that many of those costs and timelines and deadlines to create retention ponds or divert that water is minimized or mitigated using vertical solar because you're not impacting the actual flow of water on the land that you're developing. It truly is impermeable and maintains the status quo. So we feel if that's studied more, that those significant soft costs or civil costs can be significantly reduced for a lot of developers.
Yeah, anything to make a developer's life easier is a good thing, for sure. And I think the biggest thing, though, is helping agricultural communities embrace the energy transition and not be fighting these projects.
Which I had an interesting encounter when we set up our first display at our storage location in Visalia. We started maybe 2 hours to put the modules up, and the farmer stops and looks at it and like, what are you guys doing there? And we're like, this is vertical solar. And he's like, huh, this is great, because I don't need to take my trees out anymore. So I can put that next to the trees, almond trees, right? And I'm going to be fine. Before I had to take out trees, to do fixed tilt or whatever. So sometimes it's pretty easy to explain it. Very easy. I mean, yes, the yield is going to be a little bit different, right? If I have trees behind it, obviously there's a shading, but just as a little takeaway, it's just different in that regards.
All right.
And the
Well,
foot-
in our last minute together, is there anything else you guys wanted to let our listeners know before we wrap this up?
Join us on the 15th of July, 2025 at 9 a.m. PST for more. I think that's going to be awesome. And if you have the chance to come to Chicago to the Solar Farm Summit, highly recommend that. I think that's the best conference to learn about agrivoltaics in the United States. And then finally, on the 5th of November, we have UC Davis Agrivoltaics Conference with some friends from Germany who are going to talk about what the Europeans see and how they're tackling that agrivoltaics revolution.
Yeah, check out cleanpowerhour.com. Go to the events tab. You'll see a thumbnail right there at the top with our July 15th event, and then go to solarfarmsummit.com for that event, which is August 4 to 7 in Chicago. Ian?
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. If anyone has any questions on vertical solar, agrivoltaics in general, feel free to reach out to myself or Helga, and we'd be happy to learn more about your project or opinion or research ambitions to further agrivoltaics as a whole.
All right, with that, I'll say let's grow solar and storage and agrivoltaics. I'm Tim Montague. Have a wonderful day, gentlemen.
Awesome.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.